Yeah. So we'll have error handling, sorry, batch processing one more time today, and we'll try to cover up that. Once we complete that, then we will get into a new topic, error handling today. Okay, so I'm going to start the same with batch processing. So for batch processing, this time I'll create a new XML better, new configuration file I'm going to create. So when I search for batch processing, I'll be able to get 3 items. So batch job is the one which I'm going to use. Inside batch job, we will be using batch aggregator and batch step. So batch step, so that is another scope, and batch aggregator, that is also another scope, which is inside batch job. Okay. So batch, yeah. So batch step will execute the items or components, whatever we have put inside that, it will execute that one by one, which means depending upon the payload size, so that many times it will loop in and it will execute that. Whereas whatever I put it in a batch aggregator, it will try to do everything at a single shot. Okay, that is a major difference between a batch step and aggregator. But at any point of time, like batch step or batch aggregator cannot be put separately. If I try to put a batch step or batch aggregator, you will not be able to place in your XML. So these two needs to be placed within batch job only, right? So I'm going to drag and drop batch job scope. Yes, I got it. Now I'm going to get the source, nothing but HTTP listener in my case. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to insert some data, okay, into a database. So let me try to get insert. I'm going to insert one by one, not all at once. So I'm going to get insert. And then after insertion, I'm also going to say something in a logger. Right. And in aggregator, at present, I'm not going to give anything. And there will be a final logger. Sorry, on complete. So on complete, I'll be having one more logger. Then outside the scope, I'll be having another logger, or else I'll have a transfer message. I'm going to say it is inserted successfully. And one more important thing is this batch job will be executed in parallel. So I'll be triggering a request to this batch job. And the same time, meantime, there will be one more request sent to this transfer message. So both will execute parallel. And this is again means a parallel. What I mean to say is this will run asynchronously. So this will be just one hit and go, means it will just trigger a request for this batch job and comes out. It will execute this transform message and completes the execution. So it will not, this transform message will never wait for this particular batch job to get completed. So that is what I meant to say. So it is throwing error because I have not configured it properly. Let me try to get some query. Before that, I have to select the connector configuration. I'm going to use the employee DB. I have two DBs in my, two tables in my database, employee and table row DB. So I'm going to use employee DB. Values also I'll give dynamically. And port 8081 I'm going to use. That processing step. That's it. We have done with the configuration. Okay. Adding a breakpoint, or else before that I'll have one more logger. Application is deployed, adding a breakpoint. So yeah, right. So what happened? This logger executed, and the request has been sent here. But before getting a response from this one, it is going to execute this transfer message. Then now it comes into this, and what it says, it is having some error, not be transformed to desired Java map. Okay. Here I have not given a payload. The reason is like this is not enabled with the expression mode. That is the reason that was treating that as a string message, which actually a JSON type. It was considering that as a string message and throws error. If you see, actually, it was not inserted. So even before inserting, like it is saying in a response, inserted successfully. The reason is it will not validate whether this is completed or not, whether it is throwing any error or it is processing or it is processed. It will not look into that because that is again kind of asynchronous scope, what we have seen already, right? We have seen how asynchronous scope will work. Just it will trigger a request to this one, and the following message processor, event processor will be executed, right? In similar fashion, this batch processing also just triggers the request, and then it goes to the next event processor. It will not wait for the first one to complete and give a response. Okay, so you should be careful. Okay, now insertion happened. Let me go to the database and show you. If select all, I'll be able to see 50 got inserted, right? And after 50, there is 1 to 1 only. There is no 51 or 52. Now the second time it is going to execute. You will be able to see 50 and 51, right? So it is getting inserted one by one, correct? 3 times executed, came out of that. If you go and see logger, it will be having 3 inserted message inside step 1, step, all these 3, right? And these are default logs which I have told how many records were loaded, that will be popping up and saying, and then instance one will be created, and that is the instance ID for our batch job. This will be common, or this will be like used throughout the batch execution, and then it is going to execute once it, I mean, so because it is completed, it is going to execute on complete. Last time, if you see, it throws error, so on complete did not get executed, right? So if it is successfully executed, then in this on complete it will execute. So whatever you wanted to do, that you can have it here. So this, in this logger, I'm saying like on complete, right? So this message is executed successfully. Instead of having here, it will be meaningful if I have this one here. Okay, and then go back to a DB and check if there is 60 available, sorry, 52 available. Yes, 52 available. Right. All these 3 insertions happen one by one, right? And let me see if what is the worker assigned for that. Right. So since it is a batch job, so it triggers and goes, right? So I have told 78 is the worker or thread number, which is assigned to execute the outside loops, like this listener and this logger. I think this logger also, this transfer message also, I believe so. No, that is actually assigned to a default loggers, like whatever system logs will be printed. So 78 is assigned to that, and 77, if you see, which is responsible of printing whatever inside the batch step. Okay, and then I'm able to see few other threads assigned. So 12 is a thread which helps to print logs, again a few from batch job and few from outside. So since it is asynchronous, so we will not be having a dedicated worker or a dedicated thread number throughout the process. So it will use whichever is available, whichever is free, in fact. Okay. I mean, this is with respect to default configuration. I'm not configuring anything. Okay. So what I'll do is this time I'll try to configure something in this batch step. Sorry, batch job. Okay. And what I'm going to give is block size. So this is what we got stuck yesterday, right? So this block size is nothing but I was in an assumption this block size will be like how many units per block, right? But that is not the case. So block size in the sense like it will be creating that many blocks. So what is the payload that we are sending? So it will try to accommodate that into that blocks. Okay. So if I give some 100, same example, I give 1,000 payload and I have 10 blocks. So each block will try to accommodate 100 records. So likewise, it happened. That is what we have seen yesterday also. And maximum concurrency is nothing but at present, how many parallel processing can be done. Okay. At a single instance, how many it can be processed. So that is what with respect to maximum concurrency. And target is nothing but like the default target element we used to give, right? What will be the target of this one? So either it can be payload or it can be variable. So I'm not going to change anything. And the instance ID, if I give something, it will be using that instance ID. If I'm not giving something, then by default, instance ID will be created for us. Nothing but this. So no need to give any instance ID. By default, it will create a own instance. It created an instance, and this is the instance ID for the new batch job. Okay. So now we'll compare the same with aggregator. In the same flow, what I'm going to bring is I'm going to bring aggregator and show how aggregator works. Let us try to use the same insert using aggregator and we'll see what happens. So aggregator, we have to specify aggregator size. Let me try to give 2 as aggregator size. So I got error while deploying. Okay, error got overwritten. Okay, fine. So the error was saying like you are going to use something in the batch aggregator. It was giving a warning kind of stuff, whether if you are wanted to do step by step, then go for step processing, batch step processing. That is what it just throw an error. Okay, but even though like instead of using bulk insert, what happens this time? That's what I wanted to show you. Let me try to give 55, 56, and then 57. Batch step, column employee ID could be done, could not be null. So what happened is like it is having something in the payload. It is trying to accommodate that payload. See, at present I'm having 2 in my payload. The reason is in aggregator I have given the aggregator size as 2. right? So it picked the first two records and it is trying to insert both the record using this insert. So what happens is it is more than single field, single record. So insert is not having the capability to insert more than a single record. So that is why we have to go for bulk insert. Simple change I'll be doing nothing but instead of insert, I'm going to bring bulk insert. And in bulk insert, I'm going to give the payload directly. And then the query, the same query I'll be configuring. Okay, let me delete it. The same query here, this one. Okay, and this one. Insert and bulk insert. Let me show the query what I'm using. The same query I'm using. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So I have three records. Let me try to do bulk insert using a batch aggregator. So it is before batch aggregator. Okay. And now it is in batch step. If you click, you will be able to see single payload, right? Even though I'm giving three objects, right? I have got single object inside batch step. Okay. Now let me get into batch aggregator and show you. Let me go inside batch aggregator. This batch step will execute three times because I have three payloads. So it will try to process all the three. Three times the logger will be printed. Right? And now it went into aggregator. If you go and see what is the payload, it will be having two elements. Reason is I have configured here the batch aggregator sizes 2. So it picked the first two elements and it is going to insert that. Unable to convert arrays to class while writing Java payload. So it is unable to convert the format. So what I can do is I can have a transform message and try to convert the payload to some other format. Could not obtain connection from the data source. Database is active only. Something happening to my workspace. I have configured, but again it got reverted. The configuration got reset. I don't know how. Yeah. So if you see my payload before conversion, I'm saying my payload, it is of array type, but since it is a JSON type, what is happening? Everything comes in a single set, right? Even though it is array, it is coming in a single set. Now after transmission, I'm going to transform that from JSON to Java type. We'll see what happens. If you see my payload, now it is of array type, right? I think this one is expecting array type payload. Let me try to execute it. Now this logger will be printed twice since the batch size, sorry, the aggregator size, what I have given 2. So it will pick 2 per batch. Okay. And I have 2 records in my batch at present, right? That is the reason like it is having 2. And now I'm going to insert it, which was not supplied at all, EMP ID. Oh, name is not matching. I have to give like this, employee ID. This time it should work. I have changed it because from my postman I'm giving with a lower case and it is expecting a different case. Right. So let me, it just got executed once, right? One time only it inserted. Let me see if both the records are available. Let me go to database and see. Yeah, 55 and 56. These two got inserted, right? And in the next execution, it is going to insert 57. 57 also would have got inserted. 55, 56, 57, right? So this is how it works. Step will execute each record separately, means it will execute step by step, and then aggregator, it will do all at once. So whatever aggregator size we are giving, so that many records will be put, then that record will be inserted within a single fraction or single instance. Okay, since it is inserting in a single instance, I cannot use insert operation here. I have to go for bulk insert. Okay, and now it is going to execute what is there in the on complete. So this logger will be executed and this transfer message will be executed. And if you see, you may ask a question at this moment. Anyway, I have said something in the payload, nothing but inserted successfully, correct? And if you go to postman, right, the response what you got, that is not inserted successfully message. The reason is, as I have told, this will execute asynchronously, which means even before completing this execution, we would have got a response to our postman. Means it just to trigger the request to this batch processing, and since that is kind of async scope, it will just trigger the request and will not wait for this on, means that the new batch job to get completed. Before it gets completed itself, our execution will get terminated, which means our flow would have got terminated. That is the reason, since I have not said anything in the payload, I'm getting this response, right? So if I have something in this transfer message, this will be printed, which is outside the batch processing. Okay, this will be sent to your postman. That is what we have seen earlier also. But this will send even before this gets completed. So this is one important takeaway you should have, like batch processing at any point of time. That is the async execution. Okay, and batch processing can be done in two ways. One is using a batch step. Another one can be used with a batch aggregator. So batch step is nothing but how many payload you are giving. So that many times it will be executed. That many times it will execute with a unique separate records. Whereas when you come to aggregator, so we will be specifying something called aggregator size, and that aggregator size is nothing but how many per batch I'm going to give. So since I have given two records have been filtered, and those two records processed at once, right? And likewise, like any number of aggregator you can give, like if you give 10 records will be fetched, and that will be processed in a single shot. So it is up to us should think and use wisely how many aggregator size we can provide. Either it is 5, 10, or 50, depending upon your volume and load. It holds, like even if you give 100 also, 100 records, it holds, it inserts all the 100 records at once. Right? So that is how you can configure. Two things we have to keep in your mind. One is, which we got confused yesterday. One is this one, block size, and another one is aggregator size. So aggregator size is nothing but how many records per batch, and this batch size is nothing but how many batch I'm going to create. Okay, so how many batches I'm going to create, that will be considered here in the batch block size. Okay, so that is what all about batch processing. So we would have felt that one, I mean, this one a very big concept to understand yesterday, but this today it is not that so, right? Because we got stuck in a place yesterday, and now it is clear. Hoping it should be clear for everyone. If still have any doubt, we can still further discuss. So I'm expecting you guys to tell like if it is completely okay, or we can have one more here.
I think I'm clear now, Vasant. So if I have any further questions after practicing, then I'll get back to you.
Sure, sure. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so hoping like things are clear to everyone, but at any moment, like during any class, like you can open up and ask a question on any topic, not only batch processing. If you are not clear with any particular concept, you can ask that also. We can try spend time on that as well, not an issue, right? And now, having said this, I have planned something for today's class, nothing but an important topic called error handling. Okay, so this is what I have planned. So this error handling I have planned to cover in 3 days. Okay, so error handling also important, very important concept, which is actually very easy. In fact, here we have a few connectors, and we have to just drag and drop, and few things we have to do. Then our errors are handled properly. Okay, if you see what happened is, right. Sorry, it means if you ask what and all, like we will be covering error handling. We have 4 major connectors: rise error, on error continue, on error propagate, error handling. Okay. And so these 4 connectors will be available in the palette section. Using this, we will be handling 2 types of error. One is default error, and another one is custom error. Either of these can be handled using these 4. And if you are not handling any error in your flow, by default, Mule is having some capability to handle, by its own. That is called the default error handling. Okay. So we have 2 types of error: default error handling, 2 types of error handling concept: default one and custom one. Custom one is nothing but user defined. So we will be seeing both, right? So having said this, let me try to show this in Anypoint Studio. When I search for errors, I'll be able to get just 4 connectors, 4 components, right? This is what I have listed: the error handler, rise error, on error propagate, and on error continue. So yeah, at present in any of our flow, if you see in any of our flow, we don't have any error handling implementation, right? There is something called error handling scope, but there we are not having any error handlings, right? We have not, in fact, like we have not handled any such error. Even though we have not handled any error, we were still managed to get like a few errors, right? We are still getting some kind of error saying 400, 404, or some kind of 500 errors sometimes, right? So all these things are happening because we have a common error handler, sorry, default error handler, excuse me, right? So what is the default error handler is, if any of the listener, you just click on this, you'll be able to see something. In the responses, you'll be able to see something like this. Okay, let me expand and show you. Right, I have 2 responses. One is a response, nothing but success response, and another one is error response. Right. So in this error response, by default, we will be having something called error dot description. So how it is happening is, let me try to get some error. This is a default configuration. I have not changed anything. At present, I have not changed anything. So this is a default configuration. So what will happen if error occurs? That is what it says. So if error occurs, you just to try to give error dot description. to the requester. And you can change, you can set a status code also here. At present, I'm not handling it, I'm not setting it. So by default, it will be giving, right? And if I wanted to give some kind of a status code, I can configure here. And similarly, we have something for response as well. Response is nothing but success response. So in success case, what will be your response, right? I have given payload, which means what is the last executed payload or last processed payload will be sent as a response to you, to your postman, right? I can still change it. What I can do is like this will not come in error handling, but still I'm saying the same flow will take. At present, I'm going to say something like this: executed. Okay, let me save it. Yeah, it is executed. So I have got executed message. How I got is in this listener, means the listener is the capable person. I mean, so he's the one who actually will listen a request, and once everything is executed successfully, he is the person who will be sending response back to the requester. His responsibility is just not less to it is not just to do listen a request. His responsibility is to listen a request and send back a response. Okay, so this listener is means responsible to sending a response, either it is a success or failure. So how he is sending, in this we will be having something called a responses there. At present it is configured with payload. So once everything is processed, it comes back here and checks what is there at that moment in a payload, so that will be sent back. So I don't wanted this to happen all the time. I just wanted to send some message. Okay. I'm done. Yeah, now the same request earlier I was getting executed. Let me see what I'm getting this time. I'm done. So from where I'm getting from this response, listener's response. Okay, from this listener's response. And the status code, see, I have not configured anything. So since I have not configured anything, so what status code mule means finding that is correct, it is sending me that. So still I can do some changes using my one. Like instead of a 200, I'm going to give 201 this time. Okay. Here the status code I was talking about. By default, we will be getting 200 if it is success, right? And now I'm going to change it back to 201. See, I'm getting 201 created, different status code, right? So you cannot give any random number like 123, 125 and all. So we have some predefined HTTP status code. You can Google it. We'll be getting HTTP status code. So appropriate status code will be sent back to you. If I try to give something wrongly, it will not work. It may or may not work, but that is not a recommended way. Like we have a meaningful status code, we have to give that status code only, right? And now purposely, I'm going to throw some error. Okay, let me delete it. I don't want this batch job anymore. Okay, let me try to do one error like 1/0, which will grow, which will throws error that everyone knows, right? I'm going to throw error explicitly. In this case, what happens, we'll see. right? It going to execute and throws error. Yes, it thrown error. From where I'm getting, so as I have told, like every time when we encounter error, there will be an element or a tab, means a tab created called error, which will have a number of sections in that. If you see, error is one, and inside that we have error type. The type of the error is mule expression. If you expand further, you'll be able to see some more, like expression is called identifier and mule is called namespace. So every error will have something as a error type, and this is what the one key element which we will be using to filter or to find what type of error we are getting. Okay, and error type is having two components. The very first component is namespace, nothing but the mule, and the second one is identifier. Okay, now apart from this error type, we will be having something in errors, and we will be having something called a description, and we will be having called a detailed description. So sometimes like a description and detailed description will be different, in the sense like detailed description will have a further information, more information, and in this case both are having the same information, right? And if you see, the same we will be getting in our response, right? The same we have got, right? How we are getting this is, if you go to mule HTTP listener, we have configured something in the responses. If in case there is an error, what it has to send back to the requester. So we have, by default, it will be configured with error.description, right? You can change it. Now I'm going to change it to error.description to something else. Error, error occurred. And see something like for most of the cases, by default, we will be getting 500 error as a error response code. Okay, you can still customize that. Now I'm trying to customize the response. Instead of giving the error dot description, I'm going to give some hard coded response. Error occurred, error, and inside error, description. So error dot description. So if I give error dot description with function mode enabled, expression mode enabled, I'll be getting what is the content of this as a final response. Now I have changed it back in such way, giving error occurred, right? Now I'm getting error occurred in case of error, in case of error response, right? And I can change the status code as well. So instead of giving the default one, I'm going to configure something meaningful. Instead of 500, this time I'm going to say, if error occurs, send 400 as a response code. So last time I got a 500, this time I'm getting bad request 400, right? So likewise, you can customize, and this is how you have to configure your listener in such way it has to respond to proper error responses and error response code. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce something on error continue and on error propagate. Okay, what it will, like when I talk about error handling, so this error handler we will see maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, and rise error again we will see tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We'll try to see what is on error continue and on error propagate. So what happens, right? Let me construct a new flow. I have reverted it back. Since I have reverted it, I'll be having in response, see the payload is there in the success response and error dot description in the failure response. Okay. And status code, I have not changed anything. Let me save it. Error gonna occur here. Right. I don't have any error handling at this moment. Okay. I just wanted to show you something. I don't have anything at present. Okay. No error handling at present. Let me try to execute this endpoint, which is error. Error occurred here. Error occurred here. Then this logger, let me see whether that logger is getting executed or not. It sends back a error response. Let me go and see in console. The logger is executed or not. It is not executed. So at any point of time, if error occurs, then the consecutive or the next event processor or message processor or components will not be executed at all. So irrespective of which component we are using, it will not execute. Right. And I have something called on error propagate. Right. So this error handling, you have to bring and put in a error handling scope. So on error can propagate I'm having, and inside propagate, I'm going to say something. Yeah. Now here error occurs. In this case, what will happen if any error occurs? It will go to error handling. So it came to error handling. Earlier, it was not going anywhere, like it just sent a response back, right? Now it came here, and whatever we do in the on error propagate, that will be executed. This will be executed and then sends back the response. Then we will be getting error response. See, if you see 500 and the same error response only, right? But this logger also not executed. The same behavior. So with error handling, or without error handling, behavior is same. So it is not executing the next event processor. This time one different we have experienced, that is like whatever we put inside on error propagate, so that is getting executed once. If you go and see, you will be having a logger saying propagate, right? So propagate, basically what it does is it will whatever error it receives, it will consider that as a error. Then that appropriate error will be sent to the parent flow or the main flow stating there is a error occurred. Whereas there is something else called like on error continue, what that will do. So if any error occurs, the same behavior, it will get into that particular on error continue, and on error continue will be executed. Then to the main calling flow, it will send that as a success only, not a error scenario. So the again, what will happen is in on error continue, the next event processors will be executed. So that is a major difference. On error propagate will propagate the error to the parent flow level, and on error continue will observe the error, will understand the error, will grab the error, and then it will send the error success response to the parent flow, and whatever we have in the parent flow will be executed as a next event processor. So this is the key difference. Now, having said this, let me try to do this one. Like I have two logger, this logger, and there is one more logger here, right? And this logger is not getting executed if I do not have any error handling. If I have on error propagate also, this is not getting executed, right? This time, let me show how it works with on error continue. Instead of on error propagate, this time I'm having on error continue. Let me see what happens. At least this time, this logger executes or not. We'll see that. Okay. Error occurred. It will go to error handling. On error continue. So you may ask a question now. You have already told Vasant, like on error continue will send a response or will execute the next event processor, nothing but this logger, without stating that there is a error occurred, right? Let us see whether that is happening or not. Not happened, right? Only this logger executed. So you may ask a question like same behavior, on error propagate and on error continue. Both are behaving same only, right? There is no difference. Yes, there won't be any difference if you have on error continue and on error propagate in the parent flow level. There won't be any difference. So I have told something, the error occurred, on error propagate will send that as an error to the parent flow, and in on error continue, error occurred, error will not be sent as a error to the parent flow. Instead, it will be sending as a success response to the parent flow, right? That is what I have told. And one more thing you might have observed here, last time we have got 500 and this time we got 200. That is the only difference. So I have told this actually sent back a response as a success execution. So it executes that as a success response. So in my listener, I have a success scenario, what I'm giving in the payload that will be sent as a error success response, and the status code I have not configured. So in a success scenario, we will be getting by default 200. So that response we have got, right? So this is with the parent level. In parent level, if you handle, firstly, we'll start with the without error handling. In parent flow level, I don't have anything handled. So what happens if error occurred? It throws error saying there is an error, and this is the error description and error code, and the next event processor after the error occurred will not be executed. This is one scenario. And second scenario is I have on error propagate in the error handling in the main flow, parent flow level. So what happens? Error occur, it sends back error response code and error status, sorry, payload, and it will not execute the next event processor. So there is no difference between handling or without handling. Okay. And now I am going to handle something with on error continue. So on error continue will not consider the error execution or error occurred as an error. That will convert the error also as a success response, then sends back to the parent flow. So in parent flow, again, this logger is not getting executed, right? This done logger is not getting executed. But one difference what we have observed is this time we did not get a error response. Instead, we have got a success response, correct? That's what we are saying, success response and then success response code, right? Now, let me try to put this in a subflow. Extract to, there you can extract it to subflow or you can extract to private flow. So if you extract to subflow, the behavior will be same. You cannot handle error. In the same XML, I'll put maybe I'll put division. So this transfer message will be placed in a subflow, right? And in this subflow, if you see, there is no error handling. Right? Error handling is there in the parent flow, but in the subflow, you are not having any error handling. So it is meaningful, sorry, meaningless. Like if I have a subflow, right? So I have to extract that back to a private flow. I have extracted to division. Okay, now you will be able to see error handling here. So you have to keep in your mind for when you plan to handle error, then don't use subflow, use private flow. So now in this case, this is my parent flow. I'll name it as a parent. Okay, now child flow. And the error will occur here. So I'm going to have error handling there. Firstly, I'll have on error propagate. Yeah, deploy. It is again deploying. Okay. Okay, so it went here and it finds error here. And then what happens? goes to on error propagate. Then from this on error propagate, we will be getting back to main flow. We got from to the main flow, nothing but parent flow, and this event processor will not be executed because it is on error propagate. So error occurred in the child flow. So error has been propagated to the parent flow as an error only, right? I have got error and error status code, right? Let me change it to on error continue this time. Error occurred. If you observe something, it sends back to the parent flow as success response. It is not sending as an error response. Earlier, we were seeing like a red color dots, and this logger was not executed at all. This time I'm using on error continue. So from the child flow, the error will be sent back to, say, not error, like the execution or the instruction or the information about the execution will be sent back to the requester, nothing but the parent flow as a success scenario. So since it is returning as a success, the next event processor will be executed and we will be getting this printed, and then the final response as a success only to us, 200. Okay, right? So that is the difference. So three things you have to keep in your mind. The very first thing is I don't have anything in my error handling. So by default, any error occurs, what happens? So error dot description, nothing but what is the description of the error it throws, mule throws, that will be sent back to the requester, nothing but your postman as a error, as a payload, and then 500 as a default error code. Okay. And second scenario we have seen in the parent level, I'm saying about. In parent level, I have on error propagate. So if I have on error propagate in parent level, there won't be any difference. If I'm not handling any error, if I handle any error with the parent level on error propagate, there won't be any difference. So on error propagate also in parent level, if you have, wherever error encounters, it stops the execution there, sends back the response as a error dot description and 500 as a status code to the requester. And the third scenario we have seen on error continue. So in on error continue, if you have in the parent flow level, error occurs, the next event processor will not be executed. Even in on error continue also, next event processor will not be executed. But in the response, we will be getting 200 and the payload as a response, as a success. Okay. It will not throw as an error. This is with the parent level. And we go and see in the next level, child level. So in child level, I have on error continue, scenario number 4. So that time error occurred, it sends the error code and error response back to the parent flow, and the next event processor will not be executed. So what it sent back to the parent flow is error, and that error message, nothing but error dot description, and 500 will be sent back to the postman. In this case, the final scenario, we have seen on error continue in the child flow level. So error occurred in the child flow, it sends back the response to the requester, nothing but our parent flow as a success scenario, since it is treating that as a success scenario, right? And whatever next event processor we have, that will be processed and will be sent back a response as a success only. So this is the difference. So 5 scenarios we have seen, right? And now we will have some 6th scenario. Okay, if you ask something like on error continue will not treat that as an error at all, right? In that case, if I have a logger maybe next to this transform message, okay, this I can say in child flow, right? So any guess whether this logger will be executed or not? I'm using on error continue. If I use on error propagate, 100% sure this logger will never execute at all, and this logger also will never get executed if it is on error propagate. But we have seen on error continue, if we have this logger is getting executed, right? And now I have added one more logger here using the same on error continue, whether this will execute or not. Okay, so this logger will not get executed even in the case of on error continue, which means I have told on error continue or on error propagate. On error propagate propagates the error to the parent flow as an error. on error continue continues to the parent flow as a non-error. Whereas when the child flow in this level, irrespective of on error propagate or on error continue, this event processor will not get executed. So at any moment error occurs, the next event processor will not be executed. But we can put that in a child level, on error continue, we can mention. In that case, the remaining event processor in the parent flow will be executed, not in the child flow. So in child flow, whatever you have after error occur, that will not be executed at all. Finally, we'll try that. Yeah, deployed. Error occur, goes to on error continue. Since on error continue finds a logger, that logger will be printed, then goes back to the parent flow. This logger will never get executed at all. In child flow, this will not get executed. Propagate is nothing but the logger inside this. Okay. So that is the difference. So 6 scenarios we have seen, right? So I'll recap all 6 scenarios once. If you do not have any error handling, by default error dot description and the status code 500 will be sent back to the postman. If you have on error propagate in child in parent flow, it is meaningless again. So whatever default error handling it does, the same will be doing on error propagate in case if you have on error propagate in the parent flow. In child flow, sorry, in a parent flow, if you have on error continue, so this on error continue again, it will be error only. So the next event processor will not be executed. But one difference we will be observing, that is, it is sending that response to the postman as a success, which means the payload will be sent and 200 will be sent. This is 1, 2, 3 scenarios. And fourth scenario, I have a child flow. In that child flow, I have on error propagate. What will happen? On error propagate will propagate the error from the child flow to the parent flow as an error. So the event processor, what is there in the child flow or parent flow after error occurred will not be executed, will never execute it. Okay. Whereas if I use on error continue in the child flow, error occurs in the child flow, it continues that error as a success response to the parent flow, and whatever event processor after that in parent flow will be executed, sends back a response. And the 6th scenario we have seen, the error handling on error continue I'm having in child flow. I have a logger after the error occurred. In the place of child flow, in a child flow I have a logger. So this logger is next to the error occurred, and this logger will not get executed if you use on error propagate or on error continue. So these are the 6 different scenarios we have seen, just to try to explore and get back to me if you have any doubts in this. So you should be a little clear about on error continue and on error propagate. So on error continue and on error propagate, you put it in a subflow. That subflow, nothing but the child flow should be a flow. It should not be a subflow, because in subflow we won't be having any error handling. So when you try to have error handling, you must have a flow. Fine, guys. So that is what I have planned for today. We'll try to do some other exercises tomorrow using on error continue and on error propagate, and then we will see remaining 2 components. Okay. So reach me if you have any questions. And yeah, so you were asking about POC, right? I have just prepared a POC for my training. Let me try to put it here. So this is one POC, and which majorly deals with the database. So I am expecting you to, or I'm expecting like through this POC, and expecting to perform a CRUD operation, nothing but create, retrieve, update, and delete, all 4 operations. Okay. Any scenarios you can consider. You can consider any flight booking or employee data information, insertion, fetching, retrieving, or any other scenarios you say, like consider. Then components that you should use is on table row. You must use, try to have on table row, and try to have some transfer message, and then use some private flow, subflow, set payload, set variable, remove variable. So very basic POC. Just to try to do this one, I'll try to give one more POC tomorrow using file connector, and then slowly we'll try to give few POCs. Like I'm drafting POCs one by one. So at present I've just drafted one POC. Let me try to give few other if I have constructed. Let me quickly see. I have constructed one actually. Today I'll prepare 1 or 2 more scenarios and give it to you. Okay. So thank you guys. Thanks for joining. See you tomorrow.